It's time to dive into some major NFL trade rumors, and this time, all eyes are on the Miami Dolphins. Reports from ESPN insider Adam Schefter suggest that the trade market is about to heat up in a big way as we move closer to the November 4th trade deadline. Schefter believes we're entering one of the busiest trade stretches in years. We've already seen several names move. Players like Greg Newsome, Odafe Oweh, and even Joe Flacco have been part of recent shakeups. And if there's one thing we know about the NFL, it's that this league runs on imitation. When one team makes a bold move, the rest follow fast. In his latest report, Schefter hinted that as many as a dozen more trades could go down before the deadline. And you can bet the Miami Dolphins are right in that conversation. Last season, Miami stayed quiet when many expected them to make a move. Even players like Calais Campbell were rumored to be on the block. But this year feels different. At 1-5, it's clear this team isn't trending upward. With matchups against the Browns, Falcons, and Ravens still ahead before the deadline, the losses could pile up fast. That's why it makes sense for the Dolphins to sell off some veteran talent and start collecting draft capital. Maybe some late day 2 or early day 3 picks that could help reshape the roster for the future. And hey, before we keep going, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, drop a like if you're enjoying the breakdown, and share this video with your fellow NFL fans. And of course, hit that bell icon so you never miss an update when the next big Dolphins trade drops. Now, back to business, because Schefter didn't just talk about potential activity. He named 3 specific players on the Dolphins roster who could realistically be moved before the deadline. The biggest and most obvious name on that list? Jaylen Phillips. Phillips stands out as one of the Dolphins' most valuable trade pieces. Young, talented, and still on his 5th-year option. He doesn't have a long-term deal locked in, which makes him appealing for teams looking to trade and extend a player with upside. According to Pro Football Focus, Phillips has quietly put together a solid campaign. Among 80 qualified edge rushers, he ranks 42nd overall, but when it comes to pure pass rushing, he's been elite, earning an 80.1 grade, which places him 15th out of 72. He's already logged 20 total pressures, owns a 19% pass rush win rate, 14th in the league, and a 7.1% stop rate, ranking 20th among 57. Those numbers don't lie. Phillips has been Miami's top defensive weapon off the edge. If not for his limited tackling due to recovery, the Dolphins might have stolen that win against the law. For any team acquiring him, the number is manageable, around $8.8 million for the remainder of the season. And since there's no future salary to worry about, Miami, they've explored options like Trey Hendrickson, who's dealing with back issues, but Phillips could be the perfect solution. There's already a strong connection between Mike McDaniel and Kyle Shanahan, and that front office relationship could grease the wheels for a blockbuster deal before the trade deadline. Beyond the 49ers, there are several other teams that could make a serious push for Jaylen Phillips. Keep an eye on the Dallas Cowboys, Philadelphia Eagles, Indianapolis Colts, and Washington Commanders, all franchises that could use a spark off the edge. The Cowboys have shown flashes of brilliance defensively, but inconsistency and injuries have taken their toll. Adding a player like Phillips could immediately bolster that front 7 and give Micah Parsons a running mate who commands attention. The Eagles, on the other hand, thrive in the trenches, but their defensive line hasn't been as dominant this season as in years past. Phillips' explosiveness could reignite that Philly pass rush. Meanwhile, the Colts continue to build a tough, physical defense and would love to add another dynamic pass rusher opposite Kwity Paye. And don't overlook the Commanders. They've invested heavily in defensive linemen before, but the recent trades of Montez Sweat and Chase Young have left a major hole on the edge. If you're Chris Greer and the Miami Dolphins, this is your moment to capitalize. Phillips' trade value is likely at its peak, a player with proven production, youth, and a clean financial slate. You could realistically push for a 3rd-round pick, maybe even spark a small bidding war if multiple contenders come calling. A conditional 4th-rounder might be the floor, but a solid 3rd-round pick? That's a move Miami should absolutely take. A late day 2 selection gives them valuable flexibility in next year's draft and helps accelerate the rebuild. The reality is simple. Jaylen Phillips is one of the hottest trade targets in the league right now, and with the Dolphins' current direction, it makes perfect sense to cash in. Up next, we shift focus to another name that's starting to circulate in Adam Schefter's report, the veteran pass rusher Bradley Chubb, who could be the next major Dolphin to draw trade interest before the deadline. Now let's talk about another name that's heating up on the Miami Dolphins trade radar, Bradley Chubb. Earlier, we said Jaylen Phillips might be the most valuable player on this roster, but make no mistake, Chubb could be right there with him as a top trade target before the November 4th deadline. Reports from Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport have already linked Chubb to multiple teams. In fact, Schefter placed him in the same conversation as stars like Alvin Kamara, hinting that Chubb could be one of the big-name veterans moved before the deadline. Rappaport also mentioned that both Chubb and Arden Key are among the most talked-about edge rushers in trade discussions right now. And honestly, it makes sense. The Dolphins are 1-5, the deadline's closing in, and contenders across the league are desperate for help on the edge. Financially, though, things get tricky. Chubb's contract structure isn't simple. Early projections suggested the Dolphins could face over $30 million in dead money if they moved him in the future, but digging deeper, the reality looks different. A trade would be manageable for another team this season, but the real financial weight hits in 2026 and beyond. So, for any team acquiring Chubb, the short-term cost isn't bad, but the long-term hit could make them think twice. That difference in financial flexibility is exactly why Jaylen Phillips might draw more trade value. Younger, cheaper, and less of a cap burden. Still, don't overlook what Chubb brings. Statistically, he's been Miami's most productive pass rusher so far this season. He leads the team with 4 sacks, has 4 tackles for loss, plus both a forced fumble and a fumble recovery. On paper, those are impressive numbers, but when you turn on the film, the story gets more complicated. Chubb's pass rush win rate sits at 11.1%, far below Phillips' 19%, showing he hasn't consistently beaten blockers at the same rate. And while he's finding ways to finish plays, he hasn't had the same explosive impact that made him such a prized addition in the first place. That's why, even though Chubb's raw numbers look better, Phillips is still the more attractive trade target for teams looking at long-term potential. Expect the same 5 teams we mentioned earlier, the 49ers, Cowboys, Eagles, Colts, and Commanders, to circle back on Chubb as well. For franchises with cap space to spare and a need for veteran leadership, Chubb could be an ideal fit. But make no mistake, any conversation about moving Bradley Chubb will come down to money and timing. Miami's front office will have to weigh whether it's worth taking the financial hit now or holding off for a better deal down the road. Either way, with the trade deadline closing in, the Dolphins are in position to shake up their roster in a big way, and both Jaylen Phillips and Bradley Chubb could be right at the center of it. After digging deeper into the contract numbers, it's now clear what a Bradley Chubb trade would actually mean for the Miami Dolphins financially. If Miami trades Chubb before the deadline, they'd take on roughly $23.8 million in dead cap next season. Right now, Chubb's projected 2026 cap hit sits at around $31 million, meaning a trade would save the Dolphins about $7.3 million in future cap space. But they'd still be paying for a player no longer on the roster. Even with that hit, the writing seems to be on the wall. Unless something drastic changes, it's hard to see Bradley Chubb staying in Miami next year. The team could also release or trade him after June 1st, which would save about $20.2 million and leave behind just $10.8 million in dead money. Either way, the numbers don't favor keeping him. Combine that with the possibility of a new general manager and new head coach next season, and Chubb's future with the Dolphins looks doubtful. So, Miami has 2 clear options. Trade him now, eat the $23.8 million dead cap, and get a 2026 draft pick in return. Hold him until after June 1st, move on later, and save around $20 million in space. It's a tough call, but one that feels inevitable. Either path ends with Bradley Chubb no longer wearing aqua and orange by the time the 2026 season arrives. Now, let's move to the final trade name mentioned by Adam Schefter, running back Jaylen Wright. And honestly, this one shouldn't surprise anyone. From the moment Miami's depth chart came together, Wright's role has been in question. With Devon Achane establishing himself as a top 5 running back in the league and Ollie Gordon stepping up as a powerful, change-of-pace RB2, Wright has simply been the odd man out. The rookie 4th-round pick from 2024 struggled during the preseason, dealt with early injuries, and has now been a healthy inactive for the past 2 weeks. That tells the whole story. If he isn't seeing the field, the Dolphins might as well explore a trade and try to recoup a day 3 draft pick. A few teams make perfect sense as potential landing spots. The Kansas City Chiefs, Los Angeles Chargers, and Arizona Cardinals all come to mind. The Cardinals are dealing with injuries across their backfield. James Conner is out for the year, and both Benson and Amari DiMercato have missed time. Meanwhile, Bam Knight and Michael Carter haven't been able to carry the load. And when it comes to the Chiefs and Chargers, both are actively searching for a running back. In fact, Ian Rappaport recently reported that Los Angeles has been making calls around the league looking for backfield help. So, whether it's Chubb or Wright, one thing is clear. The Dolphins could be one of the busiest teams in the NFL before the trade deadline. With a struggling record, financial pressure, and multiple movable pieces, it's shaping up to be a defining few weeks for Miami's front office. You have to wonder, did Chris Greer and the Chargers GM talk this past weekend when both teams were in town for that Week 6 matchup? Honestly, I'd bet they did, at least a little bit. And here's where it gets interesting. The Kansas City Chiefs have been openly looking for a more explosive running back, and Jaylen Wright could easily fit that mold. Neither Isaiah Pacheco nor Kareem Hunt has been particularly elusive this season, and their rookie day 3 pick, Bud Smith, hasn't done much either. So, it wouldn't be surprising if Kansas City reached out to Miami about Wright, especially since reports already confirm they've been calling teams for running back help. The good news for the Dolphins? Trading Jaylen Wright wouldn't cause any financial pain at all. He's on a rookie deal from last year's draft, and his dead cap hit would be under $1 million, meaning there's no contract obstacle like the one with Bradley Chubb. So, what could Wright actually be worth in a trade? Based on recent deals, I'd say somewhere in the range of a 6th-round pick, straight up. Remember when Tank Bigsby was traded from Jacksonville to Philadelphia earlier this season? That deal included a 5th and 6th-round pick swap. Bigsby was a little more productive than Wright as a rookie, but they came from the same draft class, and that sets a fair market comparison. So, if I'm Miami, I'd be happy to take a similar deal. If you told me I could trade Wright and a 7th-rounder to get back a 5th-round pick, I'd do that in a heartbeat. That gives the Dolphins more valuable draft capital on day 3, and it's a smart move for a player who's clearly not part of the current rotation. And that's going to wrap up today's breakdown. Like I said earlier, I absolutely expect the Dolphins to make a trade before the deadline. When producer Coop asked me what percentage chance I'd give it, I didn't even hesitate. 100%. A trade is coming, no question about it. So, make sure you're locked in. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay ready, because when that deal happens, we'll be here breaking it all down.